what this is really meant to do is over the last 9 months, I've been here about 9 months now, looking at what are the parts and pieces that we have to put together to really start changing this community. And again, not changing in a bad way. When I say change, I'm saying change our business model in a way that protects the things that are here that are already important to us. That they put this spotlight here for a reason. I'm sorry. And first thing I did was start out not in it. So y'all can fuss at me when I go over there in the dark. But anyway, so part of what we're looking at with all of these is simply what are all the pieces that we are looking together and what kind of brought us to today. So when I look at it, I just named this one very simple. And there's only a few of these is going to be real wordy. But I want to start off with just 2 or 3 historic things that we're looking at. So I'm looking at the time periods here. So pre-2003 was that initial sales period. I mean, that was a long time. Cooper started very early. They sold 35,000 lots over that time frame, but all of that was still initial sales period. And what I mean by that was Cooper funded the sales and marketing. They marketed at low rates. They marketed and they subsidized our assessments and our fees from capital gains. And all our infrastructure was relatively young. We didn't have 40-year-old anything at that point in time. So, and to be honest with you, in the big scheme of things, when you look at any city or town anywhere else, 40-year-old stuff is not that old in the big scheme of things when you're looking at cities and stuff that have been around for hundreds of years. Then we got into 2003 to 2008. Well, that was immediately after Cooper moved out. You have that aftermarket. It's called aftermarket resale. You got people who are coming in. You can still trade lots. You can still pick up, people having some buyer's remorse. There's ways to pick up lots. NRPI came in here. Well, NRPI funded our marketing and our sales programs, and they paid assessments on all those lots, keeping our collection rates very high and new resident churn high. New resident churn is that rollover. How much of that rollover? Getting new folks here, and you had a lot of that in the early part of I'd say up to 2006. Churn was we were still getting a lot of new people in through here. 2006, I believe, was our best collection year rate, mainly because NRPI was paying on it. So we had like a 97, 98% collection rate in through there. Again, that's a lot of dollars when we're looking at it. But they closed operations in 2008. Well, when they closed their operations, a few different things happened. All of a sudden, POA had to go into a cost-cutting reaction. There was nothing to do at that point in time. I mean, again, think about it. You've just gone through 30, 35 years of your sales being handled for you, your marketing being handled for you, a lot of different things going on, and really there was no active sales partners. Now, I'm not talking about resales. I'm not talking about our real estate folks, but there was no active sales partners to try to sell POA-owned real estate and lots. I mean, that was the business that this place had been on for years, and all of a sudden that fell out. Well, when that happens, our collection rate fell to 80%. NRPI dumped their remaining inventory into the COSL is the Commissioner of State Lands. That's basically the state land bank, which is actually working in our favor a little bit. If we're going to have non-performing lots, having them there is not a bad place to have them. Your new resident churn slowed down. Again, with the dropping to 80%, right now in 2013, that 80% was the equivalent of $3.2 million annually that wasn't collected. So that's about $13.8 million over the last say 2006 to now that wasn't collected in our assessments. Again, I look at it from the standpoint that's probably about 10% of our assessments at this point in time. But you're also looking at the worst recession that this place has lived through, and that most things that we're looking at, when I see we only are down 10%, I was looking at this place because I had to decide whether I wanted to come here or not. I'm like, okay, that's not too bad, because I know places that hit 50%, 40% to 50% of loss in through there. But again, it was very clear to see what some of these issues are. So now, again, each one of these, think about it, each one of these is a transition. The POA had to go into a little bit different mode. You really didn't have to go in from Cooper to NRPI because it was kind of an extension of that sales program. But as soon as NRPI fell out, we had to go into to that transition. That first transition, don't spend as much money. Try to do more on less. And to be honest, that's okay. I don't mind hitting that. I did that with my own organization when I was in South Carolina during that time frame, because these places, when there's plenty of money, they get fat. I mean, but what I mean by that is it's easier to throw money at a problem than it is to go out and fix the core problem that it's there. And in a lot of cases, that's what happened. That's why while we're not doing our standards, everything that we're doing out there as well as we would like, we're pretty much getting everything done at about $3 million. Now, what's not being done is some of our long-term capital maintenance, and that's some of the things that we'll have to talk about. So again, what else do we need to do? What was in these other areas that we didn't have now? We have to develop a sales program. Okay, again, you know, we have some great realtors here, but for all intents and purposes, the reselling of property, and we've got realtors that did both. They were with Cooper and with now doing listings. That's kind of a different business. You really have to set up a different business like Cooper and NRP. I had it when they were really bringing people through here, and it was a totally different type of sales. So we have to develop our own sales program and an ROI-based marketing program. When the marketing program got kicked off 2 or 3 years ago, there was really no expected ROI. That's return on investment on that. And the reason that is because we were saying we're going to spend lots of money on marketing, but let's sell our lots for $500 a piece. Okay, so again, the things did not come to our great community, and by the way, we'll give it to you. You know, that didn't really resonate. So there has to be, with all these things, there has to be a strategy to both monetize that growth, get money off of that growth, we'll talk about that a little bit later, and to control that growth, because we don't need 35,000 single-family homes. This place would be completely unlivable. But basically, when we look at our core goal, my core goal here is sustainability. You know, if we could sit here right now on with our finances the way they are and everything, and say everything's good, we're perfectly happy with it, we're keeping up with our maintenance, it's very sustainable, that'd be one thing. We could quit worrying about the rest of it. But the reality of it is unless we can get growth, which is the second goal here, I'll go ahead and move up into that unless we can get the growth, then we can't get the sustainability. So I'm going to pop back. When I look at these things, what are all the elements during these transitions that we have to take care of? But you've got the brand, you've got the context, you've got growth and the monetization of growth, you've got placemaking, then you've got the amenity sales, and you got quality control. All right, basically, Cooper handled brand, context, placemaking, and the monetizing of the growth, because we didn't have to monetize growth at the time. They were subsidizing all our fees, all our rates, so they're making the money was good for our model. So again, for sustainability and growth, let's talk about the quality control, and it's probably not exactly what you think about. This, when I look at quality control, it becomes down our finance and financing, our systems and our systems inventory, and our capital maintenance. When we're looking at capital maintenance, this is the quality control over the things we have, what we are. Whether it's our water plant, whether it's our road systems, regardless of what these things are, we have to maintain them, and we have to have the money to maintain these things long term. That's part of the quality control. You move over into other elements of the quality control. Our finance systems. We had a long meeting this morning, just went through our audit. Even though we had a good audit on this, it is very hard. We got a lot of manual systems. Our systems are not up to date. We're working on those types of things. But it's not just that. It's not just the software. It's how we do our financing. I know we've done bond issues on sewers and some things like that, but we have to be sophisticated and really look at our opportunities out there. So that financing is an aspect of those systems. When I look at systems inventory, what are my systems? One, customer service systems. We're working on that. Customer service touches everything that we do. We're trying to improve our customer service. Facilities maintenance, okay. We've kind of centralized that at this point in time, kind of started a facilities maintenance department. So, you know, we've got buildings everywhere. One department head shouldn't be working on the air conditioning in this building while another one is working on the air conditioning in another building. You're not going to get the economy of scales. You're not going to get those types of things. But again, these were things that the POA was already doing. Gate access is one of the things that we look at. Everybody does it every day 100 times. When we look at it and we look at our guest systems, these are some of the things that we're looking at now. We'll be getting a recommendation to the board probably in the next 2 months. What we're looking at when we're looking at gate systems, we're looking at if we grow, and we have to grow, then coming through those gates is going to be more and more of an issue. So again, we don't have 2 gates. We have a lot of gates. So how do we best maximize that? These are systems that we're looking at where, yes, they're barcode. You wouldn't necessarily have to roll down your window when it's blowing snow and wave it around until you get it open. But at the same time, if you email a guest, if you have a guest coming and you send them an email, then you send them something that has that barcode on there. It's just like this. It's dated. It runs out of time, but you can send them that, and it has the barcode on there. So when their GPS actually takes them to Glazy Cutpo Gate or Danville Gate, like half of our GPS units do, they can get in, and it's a controlled entry. Same thing. If we're selling to a golfer, if we sell around a golf to somebody, and they have a tee time, well, they're legitimately coming in. If they go through the east or west gate, they're going to be let in. Well, why not have that barcode right there on that so that, again, we can run through that. Not only these type, and I'm not going to go into a lot of these systems. This is just one that's top of mind. For you to be able to come in and just hit your telephone and say, this is my guest, and this is what kind of guest they are. They're a daily guest, a contractor, or don't let my mother-in-law in, whatever, whatever you want to put on there. And then, again, if she shows up, you get a text that says your guest is here. Okay? Again, these are just little systems that people are expecting. And again, this isn't cutting edge. I'm seeing this in a lot of other places. We're trying to get up to standard in some of these, not trying to necessarily be cutting edge. So when I look at some of those types of things, those are the systems that we've been working, that have been our responsibility for a long time. Now, monetizing amenity sales, again, before, Cooper was basically, and I've been with the Cooper communities for, this is it'll be my 10th year at the end of this year with the Cooper community, so I know their modus operandi on these things. I mean, who moved here 20 years ago and golf was $5 a round? I mean, you had, that was part of their subsidy program. It was part of their programs coming on. But as soon as all this rolls over to us, we are responsible for maintaining those golf courses and making sure that we can keep them viable and working well. Well, golf is not our only thing. We have some other amenities, but we really only have two options within it. Outside sales, which is basically tourism, and internal sales. Again, right now, internal sales are tough. We talked a little bit about churn. Unless you've got a lot of new people coming in and a lot of new golfers coming in, people age, they're not playing what they were before. That happens, and our numbers start going down. That builds us capacity. So when I'm looking at outside, and OST is not outside tourism golf. OST is really a product that we've started coming up with, whether it's internal or external. We start looking at these, we start advertising, and we start looking at that. One of the things that you're going to see, more than likely, and this will be, we're working on all the paperwork now, more than likely we're going to be on the Arkansas's Natural State Golf Trail, okay? I don't see wonderful things necessarily coming from that. We'll pick up a few rounds of golf, but it also shows that we are out there to play. They'll be advertising us throughout the state and in their advertising, which can't hurt us. But we're building other entities. This Ouachita Sports Trail, you probably heard a little bit about it. It's mainly, right now, it is a 12-course kind of partnership that we're trying to bring more golf to this region. Because the reason the Arkansas Golf Trail is a challenge is because I'm not going to play golf in Fayetteville today and Fort Smith tomorrow and Hot Springs the next day. What I can do is I can come to the Hot Springs region and play 12 different courses. I can come and stay for 6 days. And that, to me, is part of the regionalism that we're coming in and trying to do with partners. I do not need and have no desire to compete with Hot Springs Country Club on a round of golf. I want to bring everybody more golf. We have to sell those outside rounds. We have excess capacity somewhere of around probably 60,000 rounds that we can sell without impacting, one, our variable cost, which, I mean, our fixed cost will cover another 60,000 rounds. The way the math kind of works out in the golf business is a golf course should be able to get priced right, should be able to get 40,000 rounds a year and make a living on 40,000 rounds a year. Now, I'm not talking Augusta National, and I'm not talking these. They're not selling golf. They're selling membership, and that's a totally different type of game. But we're selling golf. We sell golf by the round for the most part, even though we have annual memberships, and we like that. I like having an annual membership. That helps us. That's a sales tool for us, just like it was a sales tool for Cooper. But when it comes down to it, we sell daily fee golf. That's the bulk of our money. Our problem is we've acted like a public golf course and self-limited our public. Nobody else can come and play it. So again, we can come in here without increasing our cost and probably put another 50,000 rounds, and every bit of that being straight margin. So you're going to see some more advertising when it comes down to those, and I'll talk about that a little bit later too. Placemaking is something you hear me talk about a lot. A little bit of that comes from working a lot with developer organizations like Urban Land Institute and American Planning Association, because that's what a developer does. He comes out and he looks at a piece of dirt and he says, I can make that into a cool place. That's all he does. And then he works with the finances and all that kind of stuff. But all it is when it comes down to is, I'm looking at a piece of land and I think I can add value to it. But there's a lot of different things we have to look at when it comes down to placemaking. One, if all we were sitting here saying we want 3-bedroom, 2-bath, stucco, single-family homes, nobody's going to come build any more of them. We got plenty for sale. Even my real estate folks will say, yeah, we don't need another competitor at those types of elements. So we have to look at new housing options. We have to look at investment incentives. One of the things that POAs in general are terrible at is attracting investment, because we think of everything as the one person coming to build their house, the one person coming to buy a lot. Well, when you're looking at investment, you're looking at somebody that's going to come in and say, I want 100 lots. And I want 100 lots. They're not buying 100 lots because they want to hold 100 lots. They're wanting to move it. We have to figure out ways to work with those folks and allow them to move it quicker, move it into end users, so that because one person owning 100 rounds of golf is not going to play. 100 lots is not going to play 100 lots worth of golf. We know that. So we've got to move them on to end users. So creating those incentives and those conditions to allow different kind of housing options to come in. And then this is the one I want to talk about a little bit more heavily, ultra-local value creation. Because when we're talking about any of these things, and I don't care what it is, whether it's trails, whether it's a pavilion somewhere, whether it's an equestrian center, regardless of what we're talking about, okay? First thing I get a lot of is, well, we don't need any more recreation. Well, on the one hand, if we say we don't want anybody else here, then we may be happy with what we have. But if we want people to move here, then we've got to look at that. And again, it's not just move here. When I look at this, you want to see where Cooper created their value? I've shown this map before. Everything in purple is a built home. Okay, all the rest of it is not. So you can see where Cooper built them a lake, where Cooper built a pavilion, where they built a well, they didn't build the 30-mile view, but you know what I mean. But when they built a fitness center, when they built those types of values, even the pools, the playgrounds, those types of things, even small park areas, you can see it's called gravity. They pull things towards them. Well, look at these. We got huge areas. Okay. Well, I saw that as soon as I got here, and if you were at that very first meeting, you heard all this. But what we've been doing in the meantime is coming in here and looking at these areas. Okay, we just name them whatever. This is the Samaritan Project area because that's a good Samaritan right there. We're real creative when it comes to some of those things. But the things that I look at, and this is what we're doing. I look at there. You've got 256 acres in that red spot there. All right, you've got a total of 443 lots. You've got 2 houses in that entire area. And you've got 138 non-performing lots. Okay, so if you just do the math, 100 lots is about $44,000 a year not being paid us. So, you're looking at $60,000 somewhere in there, $60,000 not paying us in these areas. So what we look at, and everything that you're seeing is either a non-performing lot, something we own, it's a non-performing lot, or it's unless you're circling blue. I don't want anybody that has a house circled in blue, me saying they're non-performing. That's just a built house. We just had to identify those. But again, some of these we own, some of these are at the Land Commission, some of them are in different places. So when I look at this area and I say, all right, what can add value? Because when we're seeing people turn their lots back in, they're not turning them back in around here. They're not turning them back in these. That's a little commercial area. You got the DeSoto area and all that. They're not turning their lots back in these areas. There's value, and it's called ultra-local value. It's one thing to say, okay, living here, you can do all kinds of things. But why do you live in your house? Why did you pick your house? For some people, it may be, hey, I can walk down the trail, I can walk down the lake, I can do whatever, but there's a reason that you're in your house. And maybe I can go to the fitness center, I can see the golf course. There was some value that came in through there. And again, yep, there was some high-pressure sales going on at the time and some different things. And I don't even want to say it was that, because Cooper's original plan, which I didn't bring and I didn't put up here, but Cooper's original plan showed things being developed in these areas. But they were never developed. And that's kind of the natural thing. You turn over a property owners association to the property owner. Everybody who's already there is there for something that's already there. But kind of we've taken what's already here and brought in another, and that's kind of limited us out at about 14,000 people. And yes, we'll get some attrition, and we can kind of stay around 14,000 people, but that's not going to really help us. So again, we go into these different areas. Okay, here's an area we call the Midlands. It's just, I mean, again, there is no rhyme or reason to these names. But I'm looking at, 985 total lots. Here, there's 246 non-performings out of 6,000 acres. But again, this may not be our top project area. I'll come over here. This is that South Mountain area. It's, I believe our brightness has changed a little bit on that. But again, you can see all these built homes. That's Macero. That's Macero in through here. So in here, I'm looking at a total lots of 410. 173 of them are not paying for it. So again, I'm looking at how do we add value? Not do we need another hiking trail? Not do we this? What can I go into a specific area and say I can make this more value so that somebody will build here and say, God, I can walk down to that trail, or I can do whatever these things are. Again, just another project area. We're doing these all over. This is the village center. This is where I think we have the most potential. What you're looking at there is about, it's not about, it's 1,631 acres. Okay? Of that, you've got a lot more homes in here. I mean, not percentage-wise by the acreage. There's 228 homes in here, but you can see why. You can see why they're here. I mean, that area there, beautiful views. All this, you're starting to get golf. I mean, not golf, but you're getting lake. You're getting lake in through here. This has, I think, 2 houses in the whole area. This has, with the exception of that little view area off of there, this has 2 houses in through there. Okay. So again, when I'm looking at 590, let's say 600 lots that are not paying us. And if I don't turn around something in this area, there's no reason for somebody to say, I'll keep paying you. I mean, these are the areas I'm worried about people saying, they're not going to do anything with my property. Nothing they're talking about is adding any value to what I'm doing because I'm too far away. Well, there will be areas that doesn't necessarily happen. Some projects, like we're looking at Balboa Beach and how to make some general improvements there. That adds a value to everybody's property throughout the community. If you live within walking distance of there, it really adds value to your property. But it kind of adds value across the board. The DeSoto Clubhouse, that DeSoto Clubhouse area, that's another area that if done well, and that is a thriving place, then that adds value across the board. That's one of those things, if you looked at it from a return on investment point of view, well, that wouldn't be where we would necessarily be investing money because it's already got a lot of built out around it. But that's one of those, there's certain things that we do for the entire community. Not everything's about this ultra-local value, but trying to come in here and find some of these locations where we're doing this. Again, you take out the waterfront and you take out that ridge, and you've just dropped to probably less than 10 houses in 1,600 acres, maybe 1,500 acres. Again, now the opportunity here is because of those 2 houses, there's one right there, there's one right there. Actually, there's a couple more. There's one here, one here, one here, way down deep on the outskirts of this. You got a couple in the center. That means what? We've already ran water and sewer into those locations. All right? When I'm running an 1/8 of a mile of water and sewer for one house, what's my return on investment? Not very much. And maybe we'll see our money come back someday. But instead of sitting here waiting, which is what we've been doing, oh my gosh, I hope nobody says they want to build down at the end of this road, because then we'll have to pave, we'll have to do all these types of things. Instead of doing that, we market. We come in here and we figure out what adds value to that area. And again, we've talked about lots of different ideas, but this is the core behind it. We talk about what adds value to this area. We build that, okay? Let's say we've got 100 lots in that area, and we come in here and we spend $60,000, we'll make it math easy, $50,000 on building a little something down in this area, and then we sell those 100 lots at $10,000 a piece. How much money is that? I'm asking y'all because I don't have a calculator. Well, you know, 100 times 10,000 is $1 million, right? Okay, so we spent $50,000 to activate $1 million. Now, some of that $1 million we're not going to get to keep because, again, we'll have to do some water expansions in through here, but that's the business we are in. I don't mind doing an 1/8 of a mile water expansion for 10 houses because that's 10 new golf customers. That's 10 new tennis people. That's 10 new people to join pickleball and all these other things that we have to keep these facilities up and bring new facilities in for. You're actually sitting right there in case you haven't recognized where you are, okay? Where we were looking at this, you've got this acre, we got about 20 acres right up in through here that it's kind of been identified. It's real isolated that it could be an equestrian center area. Again, none of this is in stone. You've got all this area that we've kind of looked, you got power line cuts and all this, you see this gaggle of property that we own. You know, we could turn that into the community garden areas with you know, greenhouses and all those different elements into there. Again, none of these things are very, very high cost. The thing that we are looking seriously at long term, I mean, we're looking at everything seriously, but we've talked about that town center. That's 6 acres right in through here. This whole thing becoming a complex of I don't want to sell it. I want it to be ours, and I want it to be usable. And I have people coming to me every day that says, okay, hey, what, you know, I'd like to see meeting rooms that people could come and use and not necessarily be renting out for everybody. I want to see pottery. I want to see woodworking shops. I want to see all these types of things. We come in here and we add an amenity like that on 6 acres, and people don't really think about how big 6 acres is. 6 acres is huge. Most small towns, the downtown, is not more than 6 to 10 acres. I mean, you're talking higher density in through here. Well, if we do that, and again, we'll talk about how maybe finance is. I'm not going to talk too much about monies, but there's ways of looking at doing these things. What does this, because all of this, right here is about your 1/8 of a mile circle around in through there. And if you haven't been through there, this is some of the best laying land that we have. But if we come in through here, all of a sudden, what happens to the values of these lands, these properties, okay? Something as simple as a gate that says you don't have to drive 10 minutes to get out of here anymore. There's a gate. If we put in a gate right there, all of a sudden, you're basically 4 minutes, 5 minutes from Highway 5, from that location. There is a lot that can be looked at. Now, this is already commercial. This is commercial. St. Vincent Hospital owns this. That's the church. This is basically commercial. That's commercial. And I've said it before, you know, those commercials were designed back when Cutting Edge was a strip mall. We don't want strip malls. We don't want that coming in here. So I've picked up the phone. I've called the owners of some of these, not everybody, but I've called the owners and saying, you know, we're doing some planning. We're doing some general planning. We want you to know that we're going to be planning for your property. It by no means ties you to anything, but we're kind of trying to pull them into those concepts. So when we're looking at those, again, this is one of the examples we were talking about. This is just a rough drawing. What we do with these types of things is we'll come in and we'll take 4 lots. We'll take 4 or 5 lots. I don't even know how many lots this is, but we'll take 4 or 5 lots and we'll say, okay, if we own all of those, because when you start looking at some of your higher density areas, like your garden homes, like some of the stuff that you're looking at, some of the stuff that maybe what's our long-term care friends out here? Yeah, Mount Carmel. Some of the garden homes kind of similar to that, but maybe not quite as institutional, you know. Some of those, and these are things that we're working with our lawyers on in Atlanta, and because if we can come in here and take 4 lots and turn them into 10 garden homes, in an area that's right near walking distance to the wood shops, to all those. Well, all of a sudden, you just took 4 assessments, turned them into 8 or 10 assessments. That means, what it means to me is we can go up on the side of a mountain over in here where we don't, where putting that one house is going to cost us $60,000, $70,000, and start decommissioning some of those and really plan on what we were doing. Now, everything doesn't work out everywhere. That's why we have a lot of different plans going on in a lot of different places. But again, we start looking at how things could possibly lay out, and again, this is a different type of housing style. All it is a different type of housing style that didn't exist. I shouldn't say that. I almost said it didn't exist when this was developed in 1970. It was invented in the 1930s. I mean, this is how people lived when you didn't get in your car and drive somewhere every time you had to go somewhere. Now, this is not going to work. Something like this is not going to necessarily work up here on the side of a mountain. We're going to have areas all over the place. If you want to go build you a log cabin way up in the woods, we got plenty of room for you to do that. We're not going to impact, if we can impact 2,000 acres on how this place develops, the rest of it can go like it has been. Because what we're doing is we're trying to find those cores in through there that we can do this, and then from this area where you'll have a little green, you'll have a little something to bring in that gravity, whether it's a workshop or a pottery shop or something along those lines. All of a sudden, then you get out here to this realm and you're back into just single-family homes. But there's a reason for those single-family homes to be there, and there's a reason they can get out and walk down to it. It may be formal gardens, it may be herb gardens, but people can be involved with it and make that happen. So again, we're looking. I'm going to pop back through real quick. This is what we're looking at trying to do with one more. In these holes. These are holes. I mean, we just played with some. This is that Samaritan project area. This is that South Mountain. Why is it called South Mountain? Because it's on the south side of our mountain. Okay, again, not overly anything there. But again, we're trying to fill those holes. Now, what are we also looking at? Again, I'm just using a few examples. Look at this area. This area, totally different feel, but just as much uninhabited. Uninhabited property, our turn back on those are much higher. Again, we don't get turned back. I'm like, if y'all have got a lot in this, please call me. I'll take it. Okay? I mean, because it's a high value lot. So not only do I want you looking at, hey, I'd love to see this. I'd love to see the bakery. I'd love to see the coffee shop that I could go down to. Okay? I'd love to see whatever those elements are. Then think about them in place. In what places? Because again, what we build where very much impacts the return on that investment and the long-term health of that area. So when we're looking at that, so when we're looking at any of these projects, and I'm not going to go into them, whether I'll talk about them here in a little bit. So whether it's our green market or whether it's this is a example of a bunch of guys building boats and wood shops. I think that's Penland or Base Camp or any of these. I mean, we're going to look at those in a minute. I'm not going to go through. All of that is still placemaking. That's what placemaking is. So when I'm looking at this is the Grove Park. If you haven't, drive by it on the way out, you'll see where we're putting our little stages. But what you have, this is the layout that's going to be for the farmers market. I got a call from them this morning. They got 22 vendors that can't wait to get here. All right, context. All right, when I was looking at this job, I went on to the website, and because I'm always looking at context. What context is this in? And to be honest with you, I really couldn't tell, except for maybe a hill in the back of some picture, whether this was Central Florida, whether it was South Carolina, or whether it was Arkansas. And I sure couldn't tell the geographic region that it was really in until I dug down in there a little bit. And we had the blurb that says we're in the Ouachita Mountains and we're in all these types of things. But again, part of what people are looking for, they're not moving anymore. Where you've got a totally different, and I'll talk about it in a second, it's target market. Actually, I'll talk about that. I'm going to talk about that right now, and then I'll skip over it when we get to. The two things changed our target market. It's not that we changed our target market. We don't want y'all anymore. We want another target. It came down to the people who were buying 15, 20 years ago are not buying now. They've already bought. So it's a totally different group. So on the one hand, you had the recession, which turned everybody frugal. don't, I mean, whether they kept their money or didn't keep their money, they're not spending their money like it was before. You got much more people who value experience, who are not looking for a retirement from, say, I'm going to just sit on the porch and drink drinks and then go play a little golf. They may sit on our porch and drink drinks and play a little golf, but they want opportunities to serve, work in their community, and be part of that community. So you had that going on, but then you had this total switch over to the boomers, because the boomers are the markets that buying right now. I mean, again, you know, we want our place livable. We want our folks to be able to live here forever. And we're not wanting to sit in smaller communities. I've said this before. In smaller communities, you want to see about 15 to 20% of your people move away every year, because that keeps that churn going in. Well, luckily, we don't need that. We need to keep everybody that we have, make it easier for our older folks to play golf longer, make it easy for and more interest for all those things. But we still have to load on the other end. We have the room to grow as opposed to just replace. And that's one of the big reasons that I wanted to come here. So again, I'll switch up. That's our target market change. So this OHC, that's that Ouachita High Country. I think everybody did that. Has everybody kind of seen that magazine that went out, that Ouachita High Country magazine? That's something that we put in place. This first one really didn't cost us any more than doing like a big advocate run. With the advocate, everybody knows the advocate. But what we're doing with the advertising, the reason this one costs us more is because we gave way more advertising in this one than we actually sold. Now all the advertisers have got on to this, and we're all doing it through the 501c3 that are things pending on, because it's truly a regional effort. And when I'm looking at that, when you look through it, it gives us context. It gives us an idea. You've got to look at our stuff, and the Ouachita High Country is one of them, and say, I understand how I can live in this place now. You look at it, it's talking about golf. It's talking about all those different elements, but it's talking about it from almost a third-party point of view. So that's one of the context issues that we're trying to bring in. I'll tell you what my biggest challenge so far has been. It's not our national reputation, because our national reputation is anything we say it is. Now, we better tell the truth, or they're going to come down here and be disappointed. But our national reputation, we control through our marketing. Our Arkansas reputation, they got 40 years of, hey, I know what y'all are. And I know what y'all are, and that's a hard mindset to come in. I mean, you know, we've got people, we've got a huge market within, and this is why I feel like we're going to have some success with this. We got a huge market within an hour and a half here. Let's just talk golf, that says you can't play there. You can't play there. You used to, but now you can't. Okay? So again, when we're starting to look at this, I've got to not only, that's one thing, that's just on the retail level. That's just say getting people up here to play golf. But think about it, I'm talking to a banker in Arkansas. I'm talking to a builder in Arkansas. I'm talking to they say, we know your model. We knew the Coopers. We know what's going on. What I have to do, I have to work on a campaign to change their minds to say, no, this isn't 1990 Hot Springs Village. Because in 1990 Hot Springs Village, it's not all it was a great place, but it was a sales machine. And now we're trying to transition into a new mode on there. Tourism aspect. Everybody's scared of the word tourism, but all tourism is, especially in golf, is other people's money in the tee times you don't want. That's what those are, and we're going to push for some of those. I've already talked a little bit about that. Network partners. One of the challenges when you're talking about reputation and Arkansas reputation. And now I haven't broken this down because I'm continuing work that other people started, because this place 5-6 years ago was considered an island, and it didn't matter if it was the staff, it didn't matter who it was. If they were out representing, it's like, we don't want to play with y'all. We're not going to be, we are us and you are them. The great unwashed them or whatever, that was the attitude that was kind of put forward. But now we've got great working relationships with everybody from the Arkansas Tourism. We've got the Hot Springs Metro Partnership, and these are just one of many. And these are some relationships that I'm continuing that our board members have started in the last few years. And again, all of a sudden, when we come to the table as a partner, well, then the state starts seeing us and saying, wait a minute. If they're a tourism asset, we can spend some money on telling people to come to a tourism asset. I mean, we're no more private than a hotel somewhere. They're a private business, we're a private business. But they're a private business who's saying we can add to the economy of the region. We haven't said that, although we have more ability to add to the economy of the region. And the economy of the region means they're coming here and paying us, and it goes, well, you know basic economics. I'm not going into that. But anyway, now brand. Cooper controlled our brand, and we haven't touched it. Well, I mean, very little. We've started touching it in the last few years, but we didn't touch it very much. We said, we'll take that 1985 model, and we'll keep selling it. And that's kind of what it's been and looked at. So there's two parts, and this is where people get lost on brand. There's two parts, and if you're a brand expert, I know there's 6 parts. But for us, there's 2 parts because we're on a budget. But we're going to look at our new product menu and our look, because most people just think the look. Change the way you look, but if you don't change what you are at the same time, you're changing the way you look. Again, what you don't see on this new product menu is golf. Golf is an existing product. We don't have to come in here with a new product there. I don't want people to think I'm not focusing on that. But those are the things when we start looking at the Rod and Gun Club. And I was telling the board this morning, the Rod and Gun Club that's been launched about, 4 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that? 2 weeks? Okay. I've gotten more phone calls on that from non-residents who own here who's like, tell me about this. And everybody I sit there and talk to, I'm in my mind, I'm turning somebody who was like, maybe I would have given that property back into somebody that's at least going to say, I'll pay that $440 a couple more years and just see what happens with it, because they're starting to see something. So whether it's the Rod and Gun Club or whether it's the Grove Park or the markets, we're just calling them the markets because, again, farmers market, artisans market, all those different things. Equestrian Center, no solid plans, but we're talking about it. We're looking at it. It was in Cooper's original plans, and we're checking feasibility on that. Base camp, that is something you'll see launched pretty soon. All that is our outdoor sports stuff. People are already doing it. We're just organizing so people can do it together and organizing it beyond our borders. Why in the world would I not lay claim to 200 miles of single-track mountain biking trail out here that I don't have to build? Because everybody's going to get, all those people are going to throw it in their car and head out there. Well, I can claim it. It was our tax dollars that put it in. Right? So why not we say, hey, it's here. If you live, you're closer. If you live on the west end, you're closer to some of those trails than you are to the east end. So again, we're talking big scale when we're looking at those things. The art campus. That's kind of that's the general project term we're talking about for this area, where we're looking at pottery and woodworking shops and all those types of things. Probably in this area tied in. We've already got an art center. I mean, we've got a performing arts that we can expand off of. So now we're looking at the creative arts. I mean, it's just a natural flow, and it also keeps it in your hands. It's not, let's sell this thing to somebody else. So again, the look. Now the look is visuals. It's how our gates look. I mean, we're working on the gates projects. It's our, let me just pop out here a little bit in some of these. Okay, our signage. Our signage here is about horrible. Anybody say no to that one? Okay, this is not the best thing to see, but you're gonna see these going up in different areas. I mean, again, we're trying to be smart. I hate sign pollution, so I'm not one that says put another sign, put another sign, put another sign. But just like we put the where it says Welcome Hot Springs, does anybody remember what that said before? Don't carry your gun. Okay, now. We handled that by that little sign. Probably nobody noticed it. We handled that with that little sign that is under the speed limit sign as you come in that says, all Arkansas laws are applicable. Okay, we handled it. We didn't have to say, put your gun down, please. That's not the mindset that we're wanting to put into there. And again, I'm also one that's not trying to regulate everything that everybody does in every inch of their life. That's not our job as the POA, and definitely not my job. But so I look at those types of issues. Again, whether this is all part of brand and it's all part of look. The Green Market of Hot Springs Village. This is the Rockport sessions. Any of y'all been to those? We've had probably 300 or 400 people at those in total. Those are those little free concerts that we do. I mean, when I say free, we make our money back off of them because y'all like to drink beers. And we sell enough to, but again, these are little things that cost us $200 or $300 at a pop. We're going to do them in more places. We're going to have a lot more of them right over here at the Grove Park. We were having them at DeSoto, but again, it's the things that you don't have to plan weeks in advance for. You don't have to order tickets for. We don't want to compete. We have great things going on in this place at Coronado Center. We're not wanting to compete with that, but we're wanting to have that place on a Friday night that you can go out there and stand around a campfire. We should have put a picture of that on here. Stand around a campfire. It doesn't matter if you're 30 minutes late. It doesn't matter if you want to leave after an hour, because you're not invested in it. It's just about bringing people together in the community. That's just one of them. Again, doing some of these things we were talking about with the woodworking and that's just that's a sign mock-up of what you can see over at Grove Park. That part will be kind of permanent. This part will change, whether it's a farmer's market or whether it's an artisan market or whether it's, heck, we'd probably do one for Rockport or whatever we want to do. Again, this is just a little shot that says this is actually happening for anybody. Oop, we just had okay. Base camp, again, you'll see some more launched on that coming on. The village garden, we're playing with that at this point in time. There's several. We're so big, we can have lots of village gardens and several different types of village gardens. One, you have the kind where you rent out a plot and it's your garden and you've got your 15 by 15 spot. There's a lot of that. We can also have that community garden where there's a little coordinate committee and they work together and grow what they want to. Lots of herb gardens and things like that. I'm saying, these things, it sounds kind of hokey, but these are the kind of the cutting edge out there in development these days. It's people getting back to the simple things and those types of things, like I said, they aren't the high cost elements that we're looking at. Rod and Gun Club. Rod and Gun Club, like I said, has been pretty much a success. We got hardly anything in it because we're not building facilities yet. Although I've had a lot of people, when I say yet, I've got a lot of people who are interested in it and saying, hey, let's look at this, and now let's see if we can go outside of here and lease us some property and do a sporting clays. We got Mountain Valley Shooting Association. We got lots of people that we can partner with on those, but these are just part of your overall brand and part of your overall look. So when we're looking at these, all that comes into our marketing. That's the other area that we have to touch, is in our marketing. Everybody, not everybody, I paint with big brushes, I'm sorry. They seem to focus on advertising as being marketing, okay? Now, advertising is an important part of marketing, but just advertising, we can get people here and disappoint them. That's not a problem. We can do that. But if we come in here and look at marketing in a little bigger aspect, because this is what I expect out of marketing, and this is where we've kind of moved into, and I'm happy with where we're going. Again, this is a big boat to turn, so it's taken us some time to make some of these things. But whether we're looking at visitor flow, how is a visitor treated when they get here? If they show up at 8:30 on a Friday night, and the visitor center out there is closed, what's the flow? What happens to them? Okay? Well, Danette's gone through that whole process. Looking at those. So we're looking at that visitor flow because we don't want to spend our money to get somebody here and have them have a bad experience. So we're looking at visitor flow. That includes one-stop shop and be able to handle their stuff. So when this is discovery packages, how do we get people here? Right now we don't have any place for them to come here. So we come to, I'm talking, Danette's doing a much better job at this now than has been happening in the past, because it used to be you phone up and say, I want to take a look. Now, this is after NRP I got out of here. I want to take a look at some property. And now, if they call a realtor, well, the realtor's got a program. They're gonna walk them through a program. But if they just call in general, and fewer and fewer people want to call that realtor first. I wish they would call the realtor first. That's the person we want them in their hands, eventually. But they don't want to call that realtor first. So what they're doing is they call up and we're like, well, here's somebody you can call for rentals, and here's a number for golf, and here's the blah, 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 blah. All that kind of stuff, instead of saying, yes, we've got a package, it's $325. It comes with 2 rounds of golf, and do you mind, letting us spend an hour with you and tell you about the village? Those are the things. That's how property was sold here before, and really when you're looking at selling property, and remember, we've got 7,000 pieces of property, somewhere 7,000 to 8,000, somewhere in there, non-performing pieces of property that we need to get back on the market. Even at a strong sales velocity, and I think 300 lots a year, selling, and again, lots are hard to sell. We're talking about, I'm walking out talking with builders, trying to get home lot packages, so that selling a home lot package, even an unbuilt home lot package is a whole different thing than saying, I've got a lot sitting over in the hill I want to show you. So again, there's room for different packages in through there. But when we're looking at that, how that whole experience comes in through there. So again, when you start seeing our look, brand comes into it. So these are just website shots that you're going to see on some of this. This is some of our advertising that we have. But also market research, tons of market research. Where are people buying now? Well, everybody knows everybody's buying in the Villages. I mean, the Villages has been the top selling spot for the last really 5 years since the recession hit. But they're not using the pre-recession model to sell. They're coming in, it's about places, bringing people together. I've had probably 5, 6 people bring me information of where they went and visited the Villages, and it was about, oh, there was music playing down there. I could go down and get some coffee. There's a place I could get some beer. Yeah, the golf was fine, but the golf was no longer the focus. 10, 15 years ago, the golf was the focus. Wait a minute, I can get free golf? What's that about? That was the key focus. Now, there's a lot of people that wouldn't move there without having golf, but they're not moving there exclusively for the golf. So that's where we can take some of this into some of our advantages in through there. And this one is the big deal. This is the monetizing growth. This is we'll talk about a little bit of Bella Vista's experience, okay? Because they went through that growth spurt like everybody else went through the growth spurt. It's very similar to our situation here, except our fees probably weren't as high as the time. Right now, if we went through a growth spurt, we would get the fees, we would get whatever your sewer and whatever those were, and we'd get a few new customers, but we wouldn't get any more money. We wouldn't get any more money than we have. The same way, let me see, I forget what the next picture is. New construction, existing homes. If every existing home in here sells this afternoon, it doesn't change our budget one single dime. We got to figure out ways to make that. And again, we're not the only one of these in the world. So there's lots of different options and lots of things that are being looked at. And those things are being looked at. Let me flip back here a couple and talk about this a little bit more. But, part of that is sales programs and whatever that intakes, whether it's a brokerage, whether it's partnering with an existing real estate firm here, or whether it's starting our own situation, acquisition. Because, again, I'd love for people to go out and buy as many lots as they can buy and start paying on them. But at the same time, we've got to do smart acquisition if we're going to do some of those. Because, again, it's not, we have the opportunity to come in at a very low cost basis. And the one thing we're not talking about monetizing here is anything that we sell, we get to sink back into the community. We're not sending it to an investor off in New York or somewhere. We get to sink everything we have back into the community. So again, right now, when it comes down to assessments and fees, we're looking at fee studies. Obviously, we want to make sure that our fees are where they need to be, and we also want to look at different assessment strategies. And I've mentioned capital buy-ins and things like that. Well, we've got a committee working right now, the Future Funding Task Force Committee, that are looking at all those different options. And there are a lot of different options. We're not in. If we were sitting here with our rates ultra high and everything maxed out, like I know of some communities, we wouldn't have a lot of options. But there's a lot of options, including bringing in more outside money, which I never want to forget about that. And we're going to look at all those elements. But that's an important part of what we're looking at. But again, let me go back to that right there. This is where we started, and this is where I kind of want to finish. We're going into a transition that went from, okay, yep, the bottom fell out. The bottom fell out. Everybody knows the bottom fell out in 2006, 2007. All right, the bottom fell out. We've got to pick up the pieces. There isn't anybody coming in to do that. Now, that doesn't mean we won't find a partner to come in and work with us. We'll look at that. But it's up to us to do that, and it's up to us to create those positions. So we're going to look at these things, and we're going to. I want everybody to take the one takeaway from these is all these things, and I hope you see how brand and monetizing value and monetizing growth and all those things tie in together. You can't look at one without the other. One funds another. One, your brand affects your marketing. Your new housing opportunities affects what you can sell. The market research is the big balance we have to put out there. We have to be attractive. We have to be marketable to the market, but we also want everybody here to love living here. We don't want to give up anything we love to do that. That's the lucky part. We get to continue some of those. So really, touching all the pieces where we didn't before, we didn't have to touch. We were farming that out to a builder, to Cooper or to NRPI, which context was farmed out to them too. Monetizing growth during Cooper. Well, really, we didn't even have to monetize it during NRPI because they were paying. They were paying on those lots. Now we've got to figure out a way to monetize those. So again, the model is changing, and where before we really were just focusing on quality control and a little bit on our amenity sales and slowly easing into market. You can't ease into marketing without touching these other elements. And that's the biggest changeover that we're transitioning in our business model over to. So again, when we look at a lot of these things, whether it's some kind of equestrian outfit or whether it's this is a pottery barn, there's all kinds of facilities we can build. It's all about creating places that people thrive, because the biggest change of anything over the last 6 or 7 years is nobody buys hype. Nobody buys smoke. They're not sitting here saying, come get this investment property. If it's not a great place to live for them, then they don't want it, and they're not going to be part of it. So thanks, everybody, for coming.